Hello, classmates, and welcome to our report.
We are your reporters. I'm Dareen Bundal.
And I'm Mel Jhon Bundac, and this is the story of
Cupid and Psyche.
This is the background of the story. Cupid and Psyche is a story originally from Metamorphosis, also called The Golden Ass, written in the 2nd century AD by Lucius Appuleius Madurensis or Platonicus. Cupid and Psyche is a Greek tale where the god Cupid feels encrusted with the most beautiful immortal named Psyche.
The characters and characterization of the story. Cupid, the Roman god of love and desire, son of Venus, the beautiful winged youth. Psyche, the Greco-Roman goddess of the soul, youngest daughter of the king. The most lovely maiden exists that surpassed the beauty of goddess Venus. Venus, the Roman goddess of love and beauty, also called Aphrodite in Greek, mother of Cupid. Apollo, the god of Greek prophecy and healing. Zephyr, the sweetest and mildest of wind. Zeus, the god of the sky and the ruler of Olympian gods. Charon, the ferryman. Cerberus, the three-headed dog. Ceres, or we can also call her Mercury, the goddess of agriculture, grain crops, fertility, and motherly relationship. Persephone, the goddess queen of the underworld, wife of the god Hades. King, father of Psyche, and the last, two sisters of Psyche.
And now, I will going to tell you the story of Cupid and Psyche. Once upon a time, there was a king with 3 daughters. They were all beautiful, but by far the most beautiful was the youngest. Her name is Psyche. She was so beautiful that people began to neglect the worship of goddess Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Venus was very jealous and asked her son Cupid to make Psyche fall in love with a horrible monster. When he saw how beautiful she was, Cupid dropped the arrow meant for her and pricked himself and fell in love with her. Despite her great beauty, no one wanted to marry Psyche. Her parents consulted an oracle and were told that she was destined to marry a monster, and they were to take her to the top of a mountain and leave her there. The west wind took her and wafted her away to a palace, where she was waited on by invisible servants. When night came, her new husband visited her and told her that he would always visit her by night and she must never try to see him. Although her invincible husband was kind and gentle with her, and the invincible servants attended to her every desire, Psyche grew homesick. She persuaded her husband to allow her sisters to visit her. When they saw how she lived, they became very jealous and took Psyche into picking at her husband, saying that he was a monster who was flattering her up to be eaten and that her only chance of safety was to kill him. Psyche took a lamp and a knife, but when she saw her beautiful husband, the Cupid, she was surprised. She dripped some hot wax onto his shoulder, waking him. He took in the situation at a glance and immediately left Psyche. In the magnificent palace she had been living in disappeared in a puff of smoke. Psyche roamed about looking for her husband, and eventually, in desperation, approached his mother, Venus. Still angry, the goddess set various tasks for Psyche. The first was to take a pile of wheat, barley, millet, wheats, beans, and lentils and separate them by evening. In despair, Psyche was unable to start dividing the grains. An ant took pity in her and called over its fellow ants and separated the pile for Psyche and then disappeared before Venus returned. The next morning, Venus demanded that Psyche cross a river and collect the golden wool of the sheep grazing there. When she reached the riverside, the river god warned Psyche not to tempt a flood and beware of the rams that destroy mortals. Instead, he advised Psyche to cross at midday, when the waters were calm and the sheep took shelter in the shade and picked the wool off of the bushes and trees. For the next task, Venus handed Psyche a box and instructed her to travel to the underworld and collect beauty from Proserpine. Psyche decided to throw herself off a tower and let fate dictate her path through the underworld. But as she stood on the waterstop, a voice from the tower told her of a safer way to travel to Hades' realm. It also warned her to not open the box after collecting the beauty. After successfully navigating through the underworld and collecting the beauty, Psyche's curiosity got the best of her. As she opened the box, she was overcome by a deep sleep. At last, Cupid found out what was going on. He flew to where Psyche lay and gathered the sleep from her body and put it back into the box. He then persuaded Jupiter to order Venus to stop her persecution of Psyche. Then they were married and lived happily ever after. And it really was ever after since Psyche was made a goddess. In due time, Psyche gave birth to a daughter named Pleasure. The end.
This is the theme of the story. Love cannot live where there is no trust. As in the story of Cupid and Psyche, the god of love falls in love with the most beautiful, immortal, and you'll guess the major theme of the story is romance. Cupid feels deeply in love with Psyche, but when she showed distrust in Cupid and see a glimpse of him that against his wishes, Cupid abandoned Psyche. This explains that if there's no trust between two people, it will end pain and heartbreak. But after the task and sacrifices she did to find Cupid, she regained him again and lived happily ever after. This is the influences in every aspect. First, moral principles. Cupid and Psyche taught us on to have acceptance, patience, and trust. This is very important moral where there is no love if there's no trust between two people. Trust makes the relationship stronger, and lastly, accepting one's flaws and imperfections can make the two people live happily and contented.
Second, psychology. In terms of psychology, Cupid and Psyche's story can change one's people perspective like in love or in trust. This story can influence many people, and we know that if they will going to read this story, they will definitely know the definition of love and trust very easily.
And lastly, culture. The story Cupid and Psyche influence the culture in terms of showing love, trust, and sacrifices. Psyche sacrificed by doing the hard task given by Goddess Venus. So we, as a human, we should learn on how to make an effort in doing things that can make our society wonderful.
And that's all. Thank you for watching and listening.